Admiral Kexalon stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars drift past the viewing screen. His forearms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. For 20 years, he had commanded the 47th Subjugation Fleet of the mighty Veltar Empire. In all that time, he had never lost a single battle. The reason was simple. The galaxy followed rules. These rules were written in the Preservation Accords, signed by every civilized species 300 years ago. When a stronger fleet attacked the weaker one, the weaker side surrendered. They handed over their cargo, paid a reasonable ransom for their crew, and continued on their way. Everyone understood this. It was business, not murder. The Veltar had built their empire on these rules. They found valuable cargo ships, surrounded them with overwhelming force, and collected tribute. The cargo owners paid because fighting was more expensive than surrendering. The crews lived because dead prisoners brought no ransom money. Everyone benefited from this civilized approach to conflict. Kexalon's current target was perfect for this system. Intelligence reports showed a human cargo ship called the Stellar Wanderer moving through the disputed Vega sector. It carried rare earth minerals worth millions of credits. The humans were a new species, barely able to travel between stars. Their technology was primitive, their ships were slow, and they had no real military to speak of. The Admiral studied the data on his screen. The Stellar Wanderer was exactly what it appeared to be, a basic freight hauler. It had minimal shield generators, old-fashioned fusion engines, and no visible weapons. The ship was 300 meters long, built for carrying cargo, not for fighting. Its crew numbered only 30 beings. Against this single ship, Kexalon commanded 8 heavy cruisers. Each cruiser was twice the size of the human vessel and carried enough firepower to reduce a small moon to dust. The mathematical advantage was so overwhelming that most species would surrender before the first shot was fired. Kexalon's tactical officer, a young Veltar named Zixtel, approached with the final attack plan. His scales shimmered with excitement as he spread the battle charts across the command table. "Admiral, we have the human ship completely surrounded," Zixtel reported. "Our cruisers are positioned in a perfect sphere formation. They cannot escape in any direction." Kexalon nodded approvingly. The formation was a work of art, demonstrating Veltar superiority without unnecessary aggression. Each ship was positioned to provide maximum psychological impact while minimizing actual threat to the cargo vessel. "What do we know about human surrender customs?" Kexalon asked. His intelligence officer, Mordex, consulted his datapad. "According to galactic databases, humans follow standard protocols, Admiral. They understand basic mathematics. When faced with impossible odds, they calculate the cost of resistance versus the cost of compliance. Like all rational beings, they choose survival." Kexalon felt satisfaction flow through his mind. This was how civilized warfare should work. No unnecessary destruction, no pointless loss of life. Just a simple business transaction, enforced by superior firepower. The communication officers signaled that all ships were in position. Kexalon straightened his uniform and activated the broadcast system. His image would now appear on the human ship's main screen, demonstrating both his authority and his willingness to negotiate like a gentleman. "Attention human vessel Stellar Wanderer," Kexalon began, using the formal language required by the Accords. "This is Admiral Kexalon of the Veltar 47th Subjugation Fleet. You are completely surrounded by superior forces. In accordance with the Preservation Accords, Article 7, Section 3, you will immediately prepare for boarding and cargo transfer." He paused, allowing the humans time to understand their situation. Around his bridge, junior officers watched the screens showing the human ship. It continued on its course, making no attempt to flee or fight. This was normal. Most crews needed a few minutes to accept reality. You will transfer all rare earth mineral cargo to our designated vessels, Kexalon continued. Your crew will be detained for ransom calculation according to standard galactic rates. Compliance will ensure your safety and eventual release. Resistance will be considered a violation of civilized warfare protocols. The transmission ended. Now came the waiting period. Usually, it took between 5 and 15 minutes for a crew to discuss their options, calculate the odds, and reach the logical conclusion. Kexalon had time for a cup of his favorite beverage while the humans made their inevitable choice. His personal steward brought him a warm mug of Klex juice, a traditional Veltar drink that helped calm the mind before important negotiations. Kexalon sipped it slowly, enjoying the familiar taste while watching the tactical display. The human ship still showed no signs of preparing weapons or attempting to escape. Zixtel monitored the communication channels. Admiral, we are receiving a response from the human vessel. Kexalon set down his mug and activated the main screen. He expected to see a frightened human captain, probably asking about ransom terms or requesting mercy for his crew. Instead, a middle-aged human male with dark hair and steady eyes appeared on the screen. This is Captain Marcus Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Stellar Wanderer, the human said in heavily accented galactic standard. His voice was calm, showing none of the fear or resignation that Kexalon expected. I have received your demands and considered our response. Good, Kexalon thought. The human was following proper protocol, addressing him with appropriate respect and acknowledging the reality of his situation. Our response is as follows, Captain Rodriguez continued. Negative. This is a human vessel operating under protection of the Earth Defense Force. We do not recognize your authority in this sector. Withdraw your ships immediately, or we will be forced to defend ourselves. Silence filled the Veltar bridge. Junior officers looked at each other with confusion. Mordix checked his instruments twice, certain he had misunderstood the translation software. Admiral, Zixtel whispered, did the human just refuse to surrender? Kexalon stared at the screen where Captain Rodriguez waited calmly for a response. In 20 years of commanding subjugation fleets, no one had ever simply said no. The concept was so alien that Kexalon's mind struggled to process it. The human captain was either insane or operating with information that Kexalon lacked. Perhaps humans had different customs. Perhaps they misunderstood the situation. Surely no rational being would choose certain death over temporary inconvenience. Kexalon activated the communication system again, speaking slowly and clearly. Captain Rodriguez, perhaps you misunderstand. You are facing 8 heavy cruisers with a single cargo vessel. Mathematics indicates that resistance is impossible. Please reconsider your position. The human's expression did not change. I understand perfectly, Admiral. You are threatening a human ship in space. We do not surrender human ships. Withdraw now, or face the consequences. The transmission ended, leaving the Veltar bridge in stunned silence. For the first time in his career, Admiral Kexalon faced an enemy who refused to follow the rules that governed civilized warfare. He was about to learn that humans played by very different rules indeed. Admiral Kexalon stared at the communication screen for a full minute after Captain Rodriguez cut the transmission. Around him, his bridge crew waited in uncomfortable silence. In 300 years of galactic history, no species had ever simply refused to surrender when facing overwhelming odds. Perhaps their translation system is malfunctioning, suggested Mordix, the intelligence officer. His voice carried desperate hope. Primitive species often have communication errors. Kexalon wanted to believe this explanation, but something in the human captain's eyes suggested otherwise. Rodriguez had understood every word. His refusal was deliberate and calculated. Run a new scan of their vessel, Kexalon ordered. Check for hidden weapons, shield generators, anything we might have missed. The sensor technician's 6 hands danced across his control panel. Detailed readings of the human ship appeared on the main screen. The results were identical to their previous scans. The Stellar Wanderer remained exactly what it appeared to be, a lightly armed cargo freighter with basic defensive systems. Nothing, Admiral, the technician reported. Standard civilian shields, fusion engines operating at 70% efficiency, and minimal point defense weapons designed for asteroid deflection. No hidden military equipment detected. Zixtel approached the command chair with obvious confusion marking his scaled features. Admiral, what are your orders? Should we attempt another negotiation? Texelon considered his options. The Preservation Accords provided clear guidelines for dealing with non-compliant vessels. First, warning shots to demonstrate serious intent. Second, targeted strikes to disable engines and weapons. Third, boarding action to secure cargo and prisoners. The process was designed to minimize casualties while ensuring compliance. Fire warning shots across their bow, Kexalon commanded. Perhaps a demonstration of our firepower will help them understand reality. 2 of his cruisers moved into optimal firing positions, their energy cannons charged with visible streams of blue light. The warning shots were precisely calculated, close enough to show serious intent, far enough away to avoid accidental damage. Twin beams of concentrated energy streaked past the human ship's front section, missing by less than 50 meters. The display should have terrified any rational crew into immediate surrender. Instead, something impossible happened. The Stellar Wanderer opened fire. Hidden weapon ports snapped open along the cargo ship's hull like the eyes of some awakening predator. Military-grade plasma cannons emerged from concealed compartments, their targeting systems already locked onto Veltar vessels. The human ship's first volley struck 2 cruisers simultaneously. One plasma blast overloaded the shield generator on Kexalon's port flank vessel, leaving it defenseless. Another shot punched through the engine compartment of a second cruiser, causing massive internal explosions. Impossible! Zixtel shouted, watching the tactical display with horror. Those weapons should not exist on a civilian vessel. Kexalon gripped his command chair as his flagship shook from a near miss. The human ship was moving now, its engines producing far more power than their scans had indicated. Either their sensors were completely malfunctioning, or the humans had technology that could fool Veltar detection systems. The damaged cruiser on his port side was sending distress signals. Its captain reported complete shield failure and major engine damage. The vessel was defenseless and requesting permission to withdraw from battle. All ships return fire, Kexalon ordered. Target their weapons and engines only. We need that cargo intact. 6 remaining cruisers opened fire on the human vessel. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes filled the space around the Stellar Wanderer. Any normal ship would have been reduced to scrap metal within seconds. But the human ship danced between the incoming fire with impossible agility. Its pilot flew like someone who had spent years training for exactly this situation. The vessel rolled, twisted, and dove through patterns that no cargo hauler should have been able to perform. Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication system again, this time broadcasting on all frequencies so that every Veltar ship could hear him. This is your final warning, the human said calmly, even as energy beams flashed around his ship. Withdraw immediately. We are recording this encounter for transmission to Earth Command. Any further aggression will be met with appropriate response. Kexalon felt his patience finally break. The human was still making demands while being shot at by 6 heavy cruisers. Either their species was completely insane, or they knew something that he did not. Target their main engine compartment, he commanded. Disable that ship immediately. His weapons officer hesitated. "Admiral, direct hits to the engine section could cause total structural failure. The cargo would be destroyed. Do it." Kexalon snarled. "These humans need to learn respect for superior firepower." 3 cruisers concentrated their fire on the Stellar Wanderer's rear section. The combined energy beams struck the ship's engine housing with enough force to vaporize a small asteroid. The human ship absorbed the hits and kept fighting. Not only did it survive what should have been a killing blow, but its return fire became more accurate and more devastating. Plasma bolts struck precise targets on Veltar vessels, shield generators, weapon emplacements, bridge sections. The human gunners were not firing randomly. They were systematically disabling his fleet with surgical precision. "Admiral," Mordix called out in panic, "the Glorious Victory is reporting complete weapon failure. The Eternal Conquest has lost main power. The humans are targeting our critical systems." Kexalon watched his tactical display with growing horror. 5 minutes into what should have been a routine subjugation, he had lost 2 cruisers completely, and 3 more were severely damaged. Meanwhile, the human ship showed only minor hull scarring. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "One cargo ship cannot defeat 8 cruisers." His sensor technician looked up from his instruments with fear in his eyes. "Admiral, I am detecting massive energy spikes from their ship. Their power output is increasing beyond anything our databases show as possible for human technology." On the main screen, the Stellar Wanderer executed another impossible maneuver, avoiding a concentrated barrage from 4 cruisers while simultaneously launching a counterattack that disabled the weapon systems on Kexalon's own flagship. Captain Rodriguez appeared on the communication screen once more. His calm expression had not changed, but now Kexalon could see something deadly in the human's eyes. "You were warned," Rodriguez said simply. "Now you will learn why attacking human ships is a very bad idea." The human captain cut the transmission, but something else began broadcasting from his ship. A tight beam signal pulsed across subspace at frequencies the Veltar could detect but not decode. The signal repeated every few seconds with mechanical precision. "What is that transmission?" Kexalon demanded. Mordix worked frantically at his communication array. "Unknown, Admiral." "Admiral, the signal is encoded with mathematics we do not recognize. It appears to be some form of distress beacon, but the pattern is unlike anything in our databases." Kexalon felt cold fear creep through his mind. In 20 years of commanding subjugation fleets, he had never encountered a situation like this. The humans were not following any known pattern of behavior. They fought when they should surrender, survived when they should die, and now they were calling for help when they should be trying to escape. "All ships," he commanded, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Concentrate all fire on that vessel. Destroy it completely. Forget the cargo." But even as his remaining cruisers moved into attack formation, Admiral Kexalon had the terrible feeling that he had made a mistake that would cost far more than 1 cargo ship's worth of rare earth minerals. The battle raged for another 30 minutes, but Admiral Kexalon was beginning to understand that this was not a battle at all. It was a massacre, and his fleet was losing. The Stellar Wanderer fought like no cargo ship should ever fight. Captain Rodriguez seemed to know exactly where each Veltar cruiser would be before they moved. His weapons found weak points in their armor that should not have existed. His ship survived direct hits that would have destroyed any normal vessel. Most disturbing was the way the human fought. Civilized warfare had rules about targeting. You aimed for weapons and engines, not crew quarters. You disabled enemies, not destroyed them. You took prisoners, not corpses. The humans followed none of these rules. When the cruiser Mighty Sword lost its shields, a normal enemy would target its weapons to force surrender. Instead, the human ship fired directly into the crew sections, killing everyone aboard before moving on to the next target. When the cruiser Golden Spear tried to withdraw from battle, requesting mercy under the Preservation Accords, the human ship pursued it relentlessly. Captain Rodriguez showed no interest in accepting surrender. He wanted complete destruction. Admiral Zixtel reported with terror in his voice, "We have lost 4 ships completely. 2 more are dead in space. Only 3 cruisers remain combat capable." Kexalon stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 8 heavy cruisers, the pride of the Veltar Navy, reduced to wreckage by a single human cargo ship. It was impossible. It was insane. It was happening. "The humans are not fighting like any known species," Mordex observed, his hands shaking as he worked his instruments. "They show no mercy, take no prisoners, and seem determined to kill every Veltar in this system." The communication officer suddenly straightened at his station. "Admiral, emergency transmission coming through Imperial channels. Fleet Admiral Torvax is requesting immediate status report." Kexalon felt his blood freeze. Fleet Admiral Torvax commanded the entire 3rd Battle Group, over 40 ships of the line. If he was monitoring this engagement, it meant that news of the disaster had already reached Imperial Command. "Put him through," Kexalon ordered. Dreading what he would have to report, the massive form of Fleet Admiral Torvax appeared on the main screen. His forearms gestured with barely controlled rage, and his scales had darkened to the deep purple that indicated extreme displeasure. "Admiral Kexalon," Torvax began, his voice cutting through space like a blade. "I have been monitoring your engagement through long-range sensors. Please explain how a single human cargo ship has destroyed half of your subjugation fleet." Kexalon struggled to find words that would not sound completely insane. "Fleet Admiral, the humans are not following standard surrender protocols. Their ship appears to have hidden military capabilities that our sensors could not detect." "Are you telling me," Torvax said slowly, "that one primitive cargo hauler has defeated 8 Veltar heavy cruisers?" "Yes, sir," Kexalon admitted, feeling his career crumble around him. "The human ship is unlike anything in our databases. They fight to kill, not to capture. They show no mercy and take no prisoners." Torvax was silent for a long moment, processing this information. Around him on the bridge of his flagship, other officers could be seen checking their own sensor readings and tactical displays. "Admiral Kexalon," Torvax finally said, "you will maintain position and continue engagement. I am bringing the full 3rd Battle Group to your location. If these humans want to fight, they will learn what real Veltar military power looks like." The transmission ended, leaving Kexalon alone with his devastated fleet and the continuing nightmare of fighting an enemy that refused to die. 3 hours later, the space around the Stellar Wanderer filled with new ships. 47 vessels of the Veltar 3rd Battle Group dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and at the center of it all, the mighty dreadnought Eternal Glory, flagship of Fleet Admiral Torvax himself. The human ship immediately stopped firing. It hung motionless in space, dwarfed by the massive Imperial fleet that surrounded it. For the first time since the battle began, Captain Rodriguez seemed to understand that he was facing impossible odds. Fleet Admiral Torvax himself appeared on all communication channels, his image broadcast to every ship in the system. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of the entire Veltar Empire. "Human vessel Stellar Wanderer," Torvax began, "you have violated the Preservation Accords by refusing legitimate surrender, demands, and destroying Veltar military vessels. This is an act of war against the Empire." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle across the void. "However, the Empire is merciful to those who recognize their errors. You will immediately surrender your vessel and submit to Imperial justice. Your crew will be detained for trial. Your ship will be impounded as evidence of human aggression." Torvex leaned forward in his command chair, his massive form filling the screen. "This is your final opportunity to choose reason over destruction. Surrender now, or face the consequences of defying the greatest military force in this galaxy." The communication went silent. Every sensor in the Imperial fleet focused on the small human ship, waiting for their response. When Captain Rodriguez appeared on screen again, his expression had not changed. He still looked calm, determined, and completely unafraid, despite facing the firepower of an entire battle fleet. "Fleet Admiral," Rodriguez said in his steady voice, "you have made a serious mistake. You attacked a human ship. You killed human crew members. You threatened human property." The captain leaned forward slightly, and for the first time, his calm expression showed a hint of something that made Torvex suddenly uncomfortable. "Now you will learn something about humans that your databases apparently failed to mention," Rodriguez continued. "We do not surrender our ships. We do not submit to alien authority. We do not forgive attacks on human vessels." Rodriguez paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a promise that sent chills through every Veltar bridge in the system. "You want a war, Fleet Admiral? You have got one. But you will not like how humans fight wars." The transmission cut off, and immediately the same coded signal that had been broadcasting from the Stellar Wanderer began pulsing again. But now it was stronger, more urgent, and repeating at twice the previous frequency. "What is that signal?" Torvex demanded from his bridge. His intelligence officer worked frantically at his station. "Unknown, Fleet Admiral. The signal appears to be some form of coordinate beacon, but we cannot decode its meaning." Torvex stared at the small human ship floating defiantly in the middle of his battle fleet. 47 Veltar warships surrounded a single cargo vessel. And somehow the human captain still thought he could win. Either the humans were completely insane, or they knew something that the entire Veltar Empire had missed. Torvex was about to discover which possibility was correct. Fleet Admiral Torvex had commanded battle fleets for 30 years. He had fought against every major species in the galaxy and won every engagement through superior firepower and tactical thinking. Nothing had ever prepared him for what happened next. The first human ship appeared without warning. One moment, empty space stretched beyond his fleet's defensive perimeter. The next moment, a human vessel dropped out of hyperspace less than 1,000 kilometers from his flagship. The ship was enormous, easily the size of a Veltar heavy cruiser, but its design was unlike anything in Imperial databases. "Unknown contact," his sensor officer called out. Human vessel, bearing 27 Mark IV, range 900 kilometers. Before Torvex could respond, another ship appeared. Then another. Within minutes, his sensors were tracking dozens of human vessels arriving from all directions, completely ignoring his carefully planned defensive formation. "How many ships are there?" Torvex demanded, watching his tactical display fill with new contacts. "Over 100 contacts and increasing, Fleet Admiral," came the panicked response. "They are continuing to arrive at multiple entry points around our formation." Torvex studied the display with growing amazement and concern. The human fleet was massive, but the ships made no sense. Mixed among obvious military vessels were cargo haulers, passenger transports, mining ships, and what appeared to be civilian craft of every description. "Are we facing their military or their merchant marine?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Unknown, Fleet Admiral. Our databases show no record of human military ship designs. These vessels do not match any known patterns." The largest human ship, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the Eternal Glory, positioned itself directly opposite Torvex's flagship. When it opened communication channels, the image that appeared on screen was not what the Fleet Admiral expected. Instead of a military commander in uniform, he faced a middle-aged human woman wearing simple civilian clothes. Her graying hair was pulled back in a practical style, and her lined face showed the weathered look of someone who spent years in deep space. "I am Captain Sarah Chun of the merchant vessel Prosperity," the woman said in clear Galactic standard. "You have attacked one of our ships. You have killed our people. This ends now." Torvex felt confusion cloud his tactical thinking. A merchant captain was making demands of a fleet admiral? The concept was so ridiculous that he almost laughed. "Unknown vessel," he responded. "You are interfering with an imperial military operation. Withdraw your ships immediately or face the consequences." Captain Chun's expression did not change. "You misunderstand the situation, Admiral. We are not interfering with your operation. We are ending it." Before Torvex could respond, every human ship in the system opened fire simultaneously. The attack was unlike anything in Veltar military experience. Instead of the careful, measured assault of professional military forces, the humans struck with the desperate fury of beings fighting for their lives. Cargo haulers launched guided missiles from concealed weapon bays. Passenger ships deployed fighter squadrons from hidden launch bays. Mining vessels turned their industrial equipment into ship-killing weapons that tore through Veltar armor like paper. "All ships return fire," Torvex commanded, but his fleet was already taking devastating casualties. The human vessels did not fight like a coordinated military force. They fought like a swarm of angry insects, each ship attacking independently but somehow supporting the others. When a Veltar cruiser targeted one human vessel, 3 others would immediately converge on the cruiser from different angles. Most terrifying was their complete disregard for their own safety. Human ships rammed Veltar vessels without hesitation. When their weapons were destroyed, they used their ships as kinetic weapons. When their engines failed, they detonated their reactors to damage nearby enemies. "Fleet Admiral," his communications officer shouted over the sounds of battle. "The humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through." Captain Chun's voice filled every Veltar bridge in the system. Her words were calm and clear, despite the chaos of battle raging around her ship. "This is a message to all Veltar forces," she began. "You attacked the merchant vessel Stellar Wanderer. You killed 37 human civilians. You threatened to enslave human crew members." Her voice grew colder. "The human species does not accept this behavior. We do not negotiate with pirates. We do not pay tribute to thieves. We do not surrender our people to alien slavers." Through the viewing screen, Torvex could see Chun's ship exchanging fire with 3 Veltar destroyers at once. Her vessel was taking massive damage, but continued fighting. "Every human ship in this sector has received our distress signal," Chun continued. "Every human in space has dropped what they were doing to come to our aid. This is how humans respond to attacks on our people." The truth of her words was evident on Torvex's tactical display. Human vessels continued to arrive from all directions. Some were clearly military ships with advanced weapons and armor. Others were obviously civilian craft that had been hastily armed with whatever weapons their crews could acquire. But all of them fought with the same desperate determination. Age, size, and design made no difference. Every human ship was willing to ram, explode, or sacrifice itself to destroy Veltar vessels. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we have lost 12 ships completely and 15 more are severely damaged. The humans are concentrating their attacks on our command vessels." Torvex realized with growing horror that the humans were not fighting to capture territory or take prisoners. They were fighting to kill every Veltar in the system. When his ships requested mercy under the Preservation Accords, the humans ignored them. When crews tried to surrender, the humans destroyed them anyway. Why are they not accepting surrender? A demanded. His intelligence officer looked up from his instruments with fear in his eyes. Fleet Admiral, I do not think humans understand the concept of surrender in warfare. Their cultural files suggest they believe in something called total victory. What does that mean? It means they fight until either all enemies are dead or they are all dead themselves, sir. Captain Rodriguez's voice suddenly joined the communication from his position aboard the Stella Wanderer. Fleet Admiral Torvex, this is your final warning. Order your remaining ships to withdraw immediately, or we will destroy every Veltar vessel in this system. Torvex looked at his tactical display. His once mighty fleet was being systematically destroyed by what appeared to be armed civilians. Professional Veltar warriors were losing to human merchant captains, miners, and cargo haulers. You are threatening a fleet admiral of the Veltar Empire. Torvex raged. This is an act of war. Both human captains responded simultaneously, their voices carrying across space with absolute certainty. Good, they said. War is something we understand. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, not a single Veltar ship remained intact. Fleet Admiral Torvex spent his final minutes watching human vessels methodically hunt down every escape pod and emergency beacon. The humans took no prisoners. They left no survivors. They offered no mercy to those who had shown none to their people. His last transmission reached Veltar High Command just as his flagship's reactor went critical. The message was brief, desperate, and would change galactic history forever. Emergency bulletin to Imperial Command. Torvex broadcast, his voice tight with pain and fear. Third battle group destroyed. Complete annihilation. 47 ships lost with all hands. Human forces overwhelming. Do not engage. Repeat. Do not engage humans under any circumstances. He paused, looking around his burning bridge one final time. The humans are not like us. They do not fight for conquest or resources. They fight for complete destruction of enemies. They have no civilians, only temporarily unarmed military personnel. Every human ship is a weapon. Every human crew is a warrior. The transmission cut off as the Eternal Glory exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Captain Sarah Chen watched the destruction from her heavily damaged bridge. Around her, crew members worked to repair systems and treat wounded. Her ship had survived, but barely. The cost of victory had been high. Damage report, she ordered. Her first officer consulted his instruments. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Main engines operating at 30%. Weapons systems offline. We lost 18 crew members. Chun nodded grimly. The Prosperity was a merchant vessel, never designed for this kind of combat. But like every human ship in space, it carried hidden weapons and a crew trained for war. What about the other ships? 43 human vessels confirmed destroyed, Captain. Over 2,000 casualties. But we achieved our objective. All Veltar ships escaped. Captain Rodriguez's image appeared on her communication screen. His cargo ship looked even worse than hers, with massive sections torn open to space. But he was alive, and his crew had survived. Sarah, he said simply, it is done. Yes, she agreed. Now we make sure it never happens again. The aftermath of the battle sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The destruction of an entire Veltar battle fleet by what appeared to be civilian vessels defied every understanding of modern warfare. Within days, the story spread to every major species. The details were impossible to believe, but the evidence was undeniable. Sensor records, transmitted messages, and debris fields all confirmed the same incredible truth. Humans had introduced a new form of warfare to the galaxy. The Veltar Empire's response was swift and decisive. Emperor Kexthul himself issued an emergency decree forbidding any Imperial vessel from approaching human space. The official statement claimed that humans were an unpredictable species, requiring further study before contact. The reality was simpler. The Veltar were terrified. Other species quickly followed suit. The trading empire of the Zephyrians rerouted all merchant traffic away from human territories. The Crystalline Federation issued warnings to all ships about human aggressive territorial behavior. The mighty hegemony of assembled worlds quietly removed human space from all military patrol routes, but it was not fear alone that drove these decisions. It was a fundamental misunderstanding of human civilization that the galaxy had finally begun to comprehend. Captain Chen addressed this misunderstanding in her official report to Earth Command, a document that would become required reading in every alien intelligence agency. The Veltar attacked what they believed was a defenseless merchant vessel, she wrote. They failed to understand that humans do not have defenseless merchant vessels. Every civilian ship carries military-grade weapons. Every commercial crew trains for combat. Every cargo hauler is prepared to fight a war. She continued, "This is not because we are a militaristic species. It is because we learned long ago that survival in space requires constant vigilance. We arm our merchants because pirates exist. We train our civilians because enemies attack without warning. We prepare our children for war because the alternative is extinction." The report's most important section dealt with human strategic thinking. Humans do not fight limited wars. We do not engage in ritualized combat. When we fight to ensure that our enemies never threaten us again. This is not cruelty. It is practicality. Within months, the effects of the battle rippled throughout galactic civilization. Piracy in sectors near human space dropped to nearly zero. Raiders who had operated for centuries abandoned their hunting grounds. Even the most aggressive species began approaching human vessels with extreme caution. The Preservation Accords, which had governed civilized warfare for 3 centuries, quietly added a new clause. These provisions do not apply to interactions with human vessels, which operate under separate protocols. Trade routes that had been dangerous for decades became the safest shipping lanes in the galaxy, not because humans patrolled them, but because every potential aggressor knew that attacking any ship near human space would bring swift and total retaliation. The merchant vessel Stellar Wanderer completed its journey to the human colony worlds, carrying its cargo of rare earth minerals. But it also carried something more valuable, proof that humans had changed the fundamental rules of galactic civilization. Captain Rodriguez submitted his own report to Earth Command, focusing on the strategic implications of the battle. His final paragraph became famous throughout human space. The galaxy expected us to surrender when faced with superior force. Instead, we showed them that humans consider surrender impossible when our people are threatened. The galaxy expected us to negotiate with those who attack our ships. Instead, we demonstrated that humans negotiate with friends and annihilate enemies. He concluded, "The galaxy has learned that humans fight differently, not better or worse, but with absolute commitment to victory. This knowledge will serve as our greatest defense against future aggression." The battle in the Vega sector marked the end of one era and the beginning of another. For 3 centuries, galactic civilization had operated on the assumption that warfare was a business transaction. Attack, surrender, negotiate, profit. Humans introduced a different concept. Attack our people and face extinction. It was a lesson that every species learned quickly and never forgot. Years later, alien historians would mark this single battle as the moment when humans truly joined galactic civilization, not as junior members or primitive newcomers, but as the species that other civilizations learned to fear, respect, and avoid threatening. The galaxy had gained new rules. Simple rules that every species could understand. Human ships were not to be attacked. Human crews were not to be threatened. Human space was not to be violated. Break these rules and face the consequences. The consequences were always the same: complete annihilation. And throughout the galaxy, alien commanders who might have once considered attacking human vessels now gave them wide berth. Remembering the fate of Fleet Admiral Torvex and his 47 ships, the lesson was clear, final and absolute. Humans did not surrender. They destroyed their enemies utterly, and they never, ever forgot an attack on their people.